how are home services companies using Rilla to track their team is following the sales script. I know there's a little bit of review, but for those who are not super familiar, how are they using it to track the sales script?
Yeah, great question. And so what we do is whenever we onboard a new customer, and we've got a number of customers in plumbing, HVAC, roofing, you name it, really just home services overall. What we do is we sit down with you as a management team and we figure out what that process looks like.
Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast. And today I've got Arnav Power.
Yes, sir.
How do I say that last name?
Yeah, you got it. Power.
From Power. From Rilla. We're talking about all the incredible new features that Rilla has built out. By the way, guys have been absolutely crushing it. Super excited that you're joining the team. I know that you have been part of all these new launches, right? There's a bunch of new crazy stuff. What are the new couple craziest things that Rilla now has for 2025?
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, thank you for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to work with you and the rest of the Hook. So we've been doing a lot over really the last year, I would say, between summer and now. We have two main product capabilities that I think are extremely exciting, especially if you're an existing customer. You're likely at this point watching this already just got onboarded to one of those. So the first thing I'll talk about is Rick. We have a virtual sales assistant we've created within the Rilla platform, and its entire job is to help you understand exactly what happened with an appointment without you having to read or listen to anything. And so what a lot of our customers have been able to do, especially over the last year, as Rick has gotten smarter and smarter, is they're able to leverage the insights of 20 million conversations that we've been able to run through our platform. And they can ask questions about objections that came up, if financing was presented correctly, writing follow-up emails as well for a homeowner, or just generally trying to understand. I wasn't able to do a physical ride-along with a technician or a rep in the field. Rick, what are things that I should know so that I could save time in coaching and training? And so we've seen a lot of advances in terms of the accuracy rate, the response time, and I would say that the most exciting thing for me when it comes to Rick is we've actually extended that availability of Rick to technicians and reps as well. So before, it was only for managers, and managers could use that to coach and train their technicians. Now what we're seeing is a lot of technicians are actually using Rick on their own appointments. They'll get in the car a couple minutes after they finish, and they're able to ask Rick, are there any things that I might have missed? And I've actually heard of a couple times where the technicians will go run back into the home, and they'll say, hey, I just got off the phone with Tim, my manager. Did we tell you about financing? Actually, let me tell you a little more about that. So
that's awesome. And you know, the best part about these tools that are now becoming available like this is like, you can have some self-accountability, right? Like, God, you want that in your life. You want to have accountability and like set up your principles and then create some kind of feedback loop for yourself. And that's the toughest part is like, honestly, people want to be managed actually. You know what I mean? People want more coaching and they don't get it from most employers.
Yeah.
And this just allows everyone to actually do this in a way that actually like is scalable and isn't so time intensive that it's cost prohibitive.
100%. I always like to say it's like getting a personal trainer for yourself at the gym. And its entire job, it doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, doesn't pay taxes. Its entire job is to just make you a better technician. And the fact that we're able to see technicians use this on their own accord, to your point, without having manager oversight, without having to take time in the office, trying to figure out exactly what points of feedback they might have gotten if their manager did do a ride-along, technicians are able to just take this and run with it. And really, like any other AI product or service, it's all about your ability to intermingle it with everything you do throughout the day, right? It's not something that at the end of the month or at the end of the week, you'll take a glance at. We're finding that some of the best companies that are using us, and really ones that have grown over time as we've grown as a company, they're implementing Rilla and features like Rick in their everyday interactions with homeowners and with one another. So it's been very exciting for us to see that adoption as we go forward.
And these new features just keep on coming. I think of you guys as like the kind of the cutting edge of this service. There's other services that's kind of like this, but I think of you guys as the cutting edge, the ones that are actually adding the things that other people copy. And I like to watch those companies, the ones that are actually building the future, because usually you get the coolest things first, and they're more fun to play with. Like all these new AI tools are so fun to play with. It's and to make more money with. I think that's probably the more important thing that a lot of people care about. Talk to me about the new hands-free feature and how will it help reps in the field?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's probably what we're most excited for as a company right now. And so, for a little bit of context, we had first unveiled the hands-free feature in our Rilla Masters conference at the end of February. I know that you all were there as well. So we saw a lot of folks, both on the existing business side, companies that have been with Rilla for numbers of years, and a lot of new companies as well, just trying to figure out if this is a right fit for their business. We were able to provide the hands-free feature to them, but we are actually, and by the time that anyone watches what you and I are talking about, we've unveiled this as well to the entire rest of our customer base. So tens of thousands of technicians are now on this feature. And what hands-free is, in a nutshell, is it's going to give you the same capabilities of coaching and training that you would have otherwise on your Rilla app or on the desktop version, but it's going to replace the need for you to actually use your hands when you are using the app. And I can give you the reason that this ultimately started was because some of the best managers that we see, and you probably have interacted with many of these folks, they just don't have the time of day when they're on the road to be actually interfacing with a platform. And we wanted to think about how we can make Rilla accessible for you to be able to coach anywhere at any time. And so what HandsFree does is it is going to enable you to just speak to the Rilla platform, speak to quite literally Rick. And we've got a bunch of different character versions of Rick that you can pick from. We've got Rick the Gray, it's a wizard. We've got a bunch of different versions. And so we wanted to make it really fun and interactive. But all you need to do is just say, "Hey, Rick," and it'll open up the conversation. You can ask it, "Show me the most important part of the conversation that I want to review." It'll read it for you, and you can actually tell Rick, I want to leave a comment right here. And the entire experience can be done when you're driving. And so what you'll see coming out of a lot of the co-marketing and marketing content we'll be releasing for HandsFree is some of the best managers we know doing Rilla ride-alongs when they're working out, when they're playing golf, when they are getting their nails done. So many different situations in which they just have their AirPods in and they can just coach and train without having to even look at their phone. And we're extremely excited. We've been working on this feature probably well over a year now. We got a lot of feedback from people that use the platform on a daily basis that we just love to be able to use this without even having to interface with the platform and the app. And so it's been one of the most exciting things we've developed over the last year.
So Rilla allows you to listen to, it's an AI in your pocket, listens to the appointment. It's pretty crazy what it can do. It gives a script, it gives everything they said, it breaks down some statistics for you.
Analyze talk ratio, interactivity, like how you and I are interacting back and forth, longest modeling, like all those things.
Honestly, this is the shit that I most believe in AI.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Enhancing the
You're
user
about to put
experience.
math and data around something that used to be my magic skill.
So imagine the payoff there, guys, the viewers and listeners. You're on the golf course, you're with your friend, but you step out to the side for a quick hands-free ride along. You ask for the most important part of the appointment to be replayed, and you give feedback that quick to your people. You're giving your people what they need to keep improving. And then your friend goes, "What was that?" And you go, "I don't know, man. It's just this AI thing that I coach my people on." And they think, "Man, that guy's a badass."
Yes.
That guy is on top of the new wave of the future. Not only like, because people think something like, "Oh, AI is the future." AI is now, man. And all, and hopefully none of your competitors, but some companies like yours that are winning are using this now to win more. So don't get in this mindset that AI is the future when you could be using it now to coach your people. Because just to get into these basics now. I just wanted to go through the biggest 2 new features, but in the basics, how are home service companies using Rilla to track their team is following the sales script? I know there's a little bit of review, but for those who are not super familiar, how are they using it to track the sales script?
Yeah, great question. And so what we do is whenever we onboard a new customer, and we've got a number of customers in plumbing, HVAC, roofing, you name it, really just home services overall, what we do is we sit down with you as a management team and we figure out what that process looks like, whether you're on a training company or a best practices organization, Nexstar, BDR, Service MVP, you name it. What we'll do is we'll actually dedicate a team of our engineers to transcribe that process so that every single time a technician runs an appointment in the field, they're graded almost like a scorecard or a report card, if you will. And typically you'll see between 10 to maybe 15 steps of a sales process or even a service process. These can be things like an agenda being set in the beginning of the call, presenting financing in a certain way, going for the trial close. So asking, hey, Tim, is there anything other than cost that would prevent us from moving forward today? Presenting the company story, a lot of different factors, but we're able to score that.
No, sorry, I apologize for interrupting. I just want to note for your smaller companies that are watching this now that maybe feel like, on the early side of using some tool like this, but it's really good just to get your script down. Like if you do, and I bet you I bet you a bunch of people onboarding sometimes are like, you know what, we actually do need, and I'm sure you guys have the topper end of the market, which is a little bit more sophisticated, but there is this element of like, if you haven't gotten this all solidified, this is a good experience just to get it all solidified. And now it's solidified and accountability. So excuse me, Arnav.
No, you bring up a really good point. And a lot of companies we work with, they actually don't have a sales process in place because like you mentioned, they're just starting to get their boots on the ground. They're thinking about hiring a sales manager or a service manager for the first time. And they've only got a couple of different technicians out in the field. What I would say to that is because we've transcribed and we've analyzed 20 million appointments, we actually have a default script that is a combination of best practices from all these different types of contractors we work with. And so what we do is we pre-populate our Rilla default script into your account, and we use that as a baseline. So for a lot of the smaller companies that are just signing up, they're getting into the AI wave, they're trying to streamline their business, we help you get started, and we actually provide with you the best practice sales process, and our account managers will work with you on a weekly basis to add or remove things that we think are standard in the industry. I would say one of my favorite times to see in terms of new customers joining is when they come back to us and they tell us, we didn't even know that membership plans were something that we should be doing, and we give them a lot of data that shows them the value of that, and they're actually able to change the way that they're selling or the way they're speaking in the home thanks to all the analytics we have at Rilla. And that to me is very exciting because it just streamlines the business and it just accelerates sales rapidly.
You guys review a lot of data over there. If what's one major sales objection that you see pop up a lot in roofing and other home services calls?
Yeah, this is probably at no surprise to you or anyone watching, that financing and cost, those things are very related. Personally, I have a finance background and I was in financial consulting before this and worked on a lot of IPO readiness and M&A, and I have a deep understanding of financing and its importance. Specifically for roofing, if you think about it, if you're doing a full roof replacement, that's not going to be a couple of $1,000s. That's going to be 15 to maybe even 20 grand to get that brand new roof replaced over the course of a couple of weeks, and it can last you up to 20, 30 years. And so what we've found a lot of times is the price objection comes up, and what we try and advise and what we see a lot of our customers doing is really honing in on the way they're pitching financing. And so talking about, what is it that I need from you upfront today to get this project started? What are the payment terms? What's the interest rate that you're going to be paying on that actual financing ability if you do decide to move forward? That is something that we see be a very big game changer, specifically in an industry like roofing, where the average ticket's large. And you wouldn't believe, actually, we've noticed that there's a lot of times that price objection will come up, but it's not necessarily because the price of the product or the service is too high. It's because they don't actually have the cash on hand just that day. And if you think about a situation in which it's a two-leg sale, male homeowners there, female homeowners there, and you're asking someone to take a check and write it for $5,000 or $6,000 on the spot, they may not even just have the confidence to tell you that, hey, I don't have that on hand, and it'll disrupt the entire sale. But if you're able to present financing and say, look, we only need about $500 today, they might have already been wanting to do that entire job. They just don't have the money on hand for that specific appointment. So we really try and lean into financing for those situations.
Smart. And I think, like, you know, people, probably a reminder if you listen to this podcast a lot, but it's like, don't wait until they ask you first. You know, the ability to talk about it early and often, right?
100%.
What's a smart way from your guys' perspective to use call recordings for team training or new hire onboarding?
That is a great question. The way that we've seen this work the best is really when you are recording a conversation on Rilla, you've got that immediate feedback loop where you can talk about coaching and training to the technician or the comfort advisor that actually finished the call. But the secondary objective for a lot of these coaching opportunities is to actually create what we call clips. And so managers will go in, they'll find a great example about how someone presented, let's say, the company story. They talked about the Google reviews, they talked about that SEO, they talked about the credibility that they've got and why they're there versus a competitor. And they will clip that 30 seconds or 45 seconds of a talk track. They'll put it into our Rilla library feature that we have. And imagine a scenario in which you just hired a new technician. You've got that sales process, you've got that training, you might have them ride along with a senior technician. But because you're on Rilla, you can point to a folder and you can say, look, in addition to all the things we provide, there's about 50 hours of our top technicians handling objections in our location with our products. And by the way, they still work here. So if you ever have a question, just go ahead and ask them after you're finished viewing all those recordings. And so for new hire training, we find that Rilla is extremely valuable in building a content repository that you can look back on for years to come. And that's been a very big game changer for companies that are trying to expand across locations. You know, they may not have that sales manager that knows exactly all the context of the original location, things like that.
That made me want it. That hit. That's smart. I mean, coaching people and like onboarding reps. It's like and I've done this, right? Like in my business, the first one, it's a lot of work. You're making it up as you go. You know what you did if you're a sales founder, which a lot of us are. Then you get in like that second or third one, you're like, how do I speed this up? Like I can't train somebody for a year before like they start making deals. And then you can get it's like the cycle to sale as fast as you possibly can. And it's like the better the training, the better the examples.
Exactly.
And how can we get those examples? So this is a beautiful way to do that. And I think, you know, otherwise it's just sitting around in a meeting talking about hypotheticals.
Exactly.
We're not talking about hypotheticals anymore. We're talking about recordings.
Exactly. And we see this even for existing technicians. What we're actually starting to see is that when you run a team meeting or a sales meeting on a weekly basis, let's say a Monday morning, and I quite literally just got off the phone with someone yesterday about this. We were talking about how they can prepare for their Monday morning all hands. One of the things that they're focusing on is how to present options more effectively. And what they actually did is they gathered 5 clips across their team of how someone was able to actually present options very well. And they had every technician in the meeting this morning find their own clip to share, almost like a show and tell if you're in elementary school or middle school, right? You're trying to bring the best thing that you did last week to the team. And they'll sit in the same room and they'll play presenting that option per technician. And right before the technician in question does present that option, they'll hit the pause button and they'll go around and they'll say, okay, Tim, how would you have presented this? How would you have presented this? And then the technician who brought in the clip will stand up and they'll actually talk through what they were thinking. And so it's a very interactive, to your point. It's not role play. It's not, and I don't know about you, but here at Rilla, when we do role play amongst ourselves, we can't take each other seriously ever. It's like they're my friends, right? We don't really get into the zone, but having that real life appointment that you can replay and train on is very valuable, is what we're seeing.
Dude, that's amazing. Show and tell for your reps. Do it. That's dope.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another question here. What are top teams using call data in their weekly meetings, or how are they using it?
Many different ways. I would say that we've seen customers use the script compliance to create incentive programs. So having a call or having an appointment that you ran that did close that you have on Rilla will get you certain points towards your quota for the month. Having calls in which maybe you missed a couple of key sections or you didn't close a deal, but being able to look back and see that you've generated clips or you've actually tagged your manager in there, that will also allow you to skip training that's mandatory on the weekends on a Saturday morning instead of having to come in or doing a physical ride along with your manager. So we're seeing a lot of the analytics drive not just adoption of the Rilla platform, but just of the sales process and the heartbeat of the companies that we work with. And I would say the other very exciting thing, especially for me, just because I'm data driven and I really like to use these insights, is they're able to look at the correlation between certain parts in a sales process and the impact on closing rate versus your average ticket. So we've been able to see things, and they're honestly random at some points, where the amount of times you mention someone's first name throughout the appointment and how often you do that and at what point of the appointment you do that actually does have an impact on your close rate and your average ticket going up. Yeah. And so
you say their name, guys.
say their name.
Dude, if you just gave me a list of all their random, do you have any other random takeaways like that? Because that is super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say if you are a company that's got a membership program, what we're finding is it's one thing to just mention it in the appointment in general. It's very valuable. But
By the way, this is technically on the roofing podcast, so a lot of people don't have members. Not to say you shouldn't, but please keep going. But yeah.
If you mention membership, or even I'll use financing because I know that's more relevant. They both are hand in hand. If you mention financing when you walk out of the door, if you mention the membership program when you walk out of the door, you're not priming the customer throughout the appointment to think about how the price would be different if they did decide to move forward with financing. And so what we're finding is that not just presenting it, but actually the time in the appointment in which that is presented for the first time has a massive impact on your ability to actually close the sale. So if you mention financing in the first 10 minutes of the appointment, it primes the customer to think then throughout the entire appointment when it comes to cost, when it comes to different sorts of warranties, to have that in their mind that, okay, if I do offer financing, it's actually going to be a lot less versus at the end of the appointment, oh, by the way, we also could have a down payment. They've already in their mind made the decision whether or not they're going to move forward. And so it's almost an afterthought that you're presenting it.
That's a big one. I think, and you're saying that for other home service types businesses, membership is kind of the same way, that you should be priming them from the beginning.
Exactly, because if you're a member, you oftentimes get discounts on service replacements or even on just new parts. And so we've seen the best comfort advisors in HVAC, for example, ask immediately if they're a member. And if not, every time they mention price throughout the duration of the appointment, they add something to the effect of, by the way, if you're a member, it actually would be this price. So by the time the appointment's over, if they're not already a member, they're like, well, I've already seen about $600 of savings in just this conversation I could be utilizing.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, there's so many good, psychological insights there.
Yes.
What I've noticed in relationships too, as we have conversations, like if I think about my wife, for instance, if I bring up an idea and let it percolate without asking her for a decision, and it has time to her to go through the emotional journey.
Yes. You got to start on that journey early.
And so the idea is developed and taken root, versus if you say it 10 minutes before you leave, it's like you left for a decision. It's like, I haven't even thought about that yet. Yeah. And you're asking for me to go for it. I just heard about it. So totally get it. I think it's a great principle for any type of persuasion.
Yeah.
As well, right? About getting them to think about it and then letting time develop the idea. And then it's also it's a little bit more they could bring it up as their idea.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yes, that happens.
If you truly believe in what you're doing and you want to be the best version of yourself and you want to build a great organization, there's no other place to do that besides the roofing cavity.
That's the ultimate win, is when they're so excited about it that they keep returning back to something you mentioned briefly when you first stepped into the home. And I actually think what could be pretty interesting too is we, in addition to sales process compliance, we have what we call how to talk metrics. And those are actually very nuanced. Those are things like our patience ratio. So when you ask me a question, on average, how long do I wait before I answer you? Am I cutting you off? Am I letting the question hang for a second? Am I thinking through my response? We measure those sorts of insights. Talk speed is another one. You wouldn't believe having an appointment in the morning going not super great, and then an appointment in the afternoon going great, actually would come down to your talk speed. And I've had a conversation with a technician before where the technician had told me, this appointment wasn't really going super well. I don't understand why. The homeowner and I, we just didn't really click. And then later that day, having a different appointment with a similar type of homeowner, and that one working out, and looking at the talk speed and realizing that in the morning, their talk speed was about 280 to 300 words a minute, versus in the evening, their talk speed being between 140 to 180 words a minute. And what that does is that actually allows the homeowner to follow along with what you're saying and really understand the message you're trying to convey. So the content can be the exact same from a morning appointment to an afternoon. But if you're jacked up on 4 cups of coffee and it's 8 a.m. and you're just ripping what you have to talk about, that actually impacts your close rate.
Letting it hang there for a second. I think
I like it.
I think that, man, I see that too. Like, it's cool because you say these things, AI has helped identify these patterns.
Yeah.
But I immediately know why. And I certainly, when I'm communicating to my team and I'm too caffeinated, I can tell it doesn't land as quick, like as a leader. So I'm kind of rushing through things a little bit because I've thought through them about 15 times already in the last weekend, in the last few days.
Yeah.
But when I slow down, I'm a little less caffeinated. And I'm basically, I think that this is a big thing that home service businesses, roofers in particular, can work on, which is, and any salesperson, I know this the most from my company, but I think it relates to roofers too, is like, yes, you've said it 100 times, but you got to say it like it's your first time saying it. You have to like treat it like it's your greatest hits. And that some people just paid for this opportunity to see the song that they've listened to, basically that mindset, because those rock stars are probably sick of playing that song.
Yeah.
They're probably so sick of playing Freebird or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you know that they are playing it for that person. Leonard Skinner is playing it for that person that came to their show. Like, it's the first time they played it, and you gotta play those greatest hits. You gotta play the financing greatest hit early in the call and respect the fact that homeowner has not heard that 15 times in the last week like you have.
Yeah.
And slowing down a little bit. Like, all right. Right. Like, there's a reason why there's a Southern charm.
Yeah.
Right. It's because those people kind of slow it down a little bit for you. Like, not in like a kiddish way, but in a swang, it's got a swang to it. And I think
Hang for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That really resonates with me because that's something that I've actually said. It's funny. It's exactly what you just said, is that you've presented options about 1,000 times in your job every single day. But when you go to somebody's home and they've invited you there and it's the first time that they're interacting with your company, it's their first time hearing those options. They've never heard them before. They have no idea what the product lines that you're selling are. And so keeping that in the back of your head, being slow for the patients, keeping your talk speed measured, all those different things, they go a long way. And I think what we are also constantly trying to do at Rilla is we're trying to break down that formula of that feeling you get when you close a deal, when you walk out of the home and you think, wow, that whole appointment was seamless, but you can't quite you can't pinpoint exactly what you did that made that happen. That's to us where the how to talk metrics come in place. patience, words per minute, your interactivity, the back and forth between you and the homeowner, all those, and your monologue. You wouldn't believe, by the way, how much people will ramble for 5 or 6 minutes talking about the technicalities of something very specific in a product, and the homeowner's just completely spaced out. They don't care. They've been listening to you for 5 minutes.
I can believe, because I am that guy sometimes on Sarah's Claus.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to remember that because you get so excited, right? So
Anything else? I love those insights, by the way. And just to put a cap on one of them, the patience was, you want to have a little bit more time after somebody stops asking a question.
yes,
So to make them feel like you're thinking.
do you want to wait between a second and 2 seconds? Doesn't have to be every single time, but you'd be surprised at the amount of technicians, and even for us at Rilla, we use the platform every day. When I first started working here, my patience score was 0.4 seconds. And I thought, I'm not really that much of an excited guy, but it feels like an eternity when you're going from 0.4 seconds to 1 second. And that just shows you how important it actually is to think about that nuance. So yeah, it's if you wait for just a second, just one, after you get a question, it will make a difference.
What else is there that's a insight that people, I know you've gone through these things 100 times, but like that other people might find intriguing that aren't looking at this data constantly?
Yeah, I think financing was a big one. Yeah, patience, how to talk, those things are big as well. I would say that presenting the company story early and with a lot of enthusiasm, with real confidence, that will actually eliminate a lot of the objections that come up later. Because in addition to price being an objection, one we see a lot is just, I need to think about it. That's what we call the objection at Rilla, is just need to think about it. And it can span from the husband or the wife not being at home, or it can just be, hey, I've got someone else that's presenting quotes on Tuesday. When you present that company story up front, you're building value throughout the appointment, but you're framing it in the context of your company being the one that's adding that value. And now it's not just a technician that a homeowner is having to battle between one tech or another. It's actually the entire gamut of what that company's got to offer. And so when you come into a home and you tell them, we've got 6,000 Google reviews. We've been in business for 40 years. We really only work in this area. We've got Joe down the street. We've got this commercial real estate development as well. The rest of the appointment, they're much more susceptible to trusting you and liking you. And they may actually cancel that quote from another competitor just because they had such a great experience and they feel like they've got the backing of the entire organization. So we try and stress that if you're going to present company story, if you're going to build credibility, try and do that outside of the gate. Don't wait until they ask you that dreaded question, what makes you guys different? Why should I go with you? You want to nip that in the bud as soon as possible so they don't have to have that question hanging on their heads.
Are there any emotional notes to hit? I know you said enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's around the question of trust and integrity, though, right? Like, this is why we believe in doing things the right way. Is the question you want to answer? Or is there anything else that you guys noted on what makes company stories effective?
I think when I think about company stories, it's if you can name other folks in the community, other people that are in the residential area that you're servicing, just with the off chance that they might recognize those names, that goes a really long way. Talking about the reviews, of course, is something that I think most businesses do. But even talking about how many years you've just been in the area is fantastic as well. And I hope that if you're a company that's been around for more than 20 or 30 years, that's extremely powerful. And there's a lot of consolidation with private equity companies. There's a lot of franchising going on. And those things are great. But being able to say we're a third generation business, we've been in this area. You know, my dad was in roofing. His grandfather was in roofing. It really shows a homeowner that they're in trusted hands.
Amazing. Arnav,
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for being on. Man, you came with the new features and functions, and you delivered with real powerful sales insights that are going to completely, like, legitimately help contractors. And if they get on Rilla, they're going to only see more, right? Like, this is like the generic this is what seems to work for most people, but you'll know down to the detail how it's going to work in your business if you get on Rilla. So, and thank you guys for being a partner of Hook Agency. We're incredibly grateful to be. I just love you guys' company because you guys are forward thinking and you guys are always doing the coolest new thing. So really I like being part of, your circle.
I appreciate it. And thank you guys as well. You guys have been phenomenal partners, and just having me on the podcast here is fantastic. So very excited for the rest of the year. And like you mentioned, this is the tip of the iceberg. I feel like for anyone who's listening that's thinking about joining Rilla, please do so, and you won't regret it. It'll change the business.
Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I said it'll change. If you're thinking about joining Rilla and you haven't done so already, please go ahead and do so. Please check us out. It will be well worth your time.
Absolutely. And thank you guys. And by the way, we just, so many of our best customers are on Rilla. Like I think about Monarch Roofing and several other companies that are just like the best of the best.
Yes.
Are on this platform and are using it to improve. So if you can't trust us, talk to the best Summit Roofing and Restoration. Those guys are amazing, super cool company, growing like a weed, and they're on it. So look into the companies that are really, really growing. Ask them what they're doing for their sales coaching. This is going to come up. And I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Podcast is put on by hookagency.com. Hook Agency all over social. Where can they check you guys out?
Just go over to Rilla.com and sign up for a demo, and we'll be sure to reach out to you.
Amazing. I remember when it was back at RillaVoice.com. I remember, I like to be the old man. I remember when Sebastian was in his little booth in the back corner of Win the Storm 5 years ago. And I found it and I was like, there's something legitimately innovative at this conference.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing I filmed. So I always tell that story. I just think I discovered him. So not a big deal.
Found by Hook Agency, exactly.
Yeah, I just found him, unearthed him. But yeah, he's a driven founder, dude. What an amazing dude. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what else you guys do in the next few years. Always the most innovative stuff. Thank you, everyone. See ya.